Good evening from the Good News Broadcasting Studio headquarters here in Nairobi. This is the Insight. Of course, at GBS TV, we bring to you the Insight every Friday from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. Here to elucidate and, of course, to educate you on issues that affect you one-on-one. Might be on political issues, on economy, or even on current affairs. Well, tonight we speak about the economy post-election. And of course, I have with me two gentlemen through whose eyes we're going to get to understand the true state of economy as it stands even after election. Well, these two gentlemen, I'll be getting to introduce them, of course, in time. But Kenya has just come out of what is arguably the country's most important democratic exercise, with the new president assuming office on the backdrop of huge debt incurred by the outgoing administration and astronomical unemployment figures. How does everything bode for the country's current status and future? Really, what's the next for the country's economy? These and more other questions here to ask on the Insight about the country's state of economy. This we're going to get through a financial analyst and expert, of course, is also an entrepreneur coming to us on the Insight. That is Austin Jr. Austin Jr. is a financial analyst and an entrepreneur. Is also coming to us on the show tonight. We're going to get to hear from him very soon. And of course, we have Samuel Getembe on the show as well. Mr. Samuel Getembe is an economy analyst, governance expert. Also, we get to hear from him as we delve deeply into these issues that, of course, are affecting you one-on-one. And we believe that this show was meant for you. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for accepting my invite to the Insight once again. And you're welcome.
Thank you.
How was the week, Mr. Austin?
My week was fine. I thank God.
As an entrepreneur?
Yes.
Mr. Getembe, how was the week, sir?
The week has been so good. The economy is really trying to strive. So we're hoping to have it better soon.
Okay. Well, let's just go to the first question. We have kind of myriad of challenges facing our economy, from low productivity in agriculture, post-COVID recovery. We have unemployment of young people also, and according to the Bloomberg, is currently standing at 14%. That is, of course, in Kenya. If someone asked you, Mr. Austin, what is the true state of our country's economy as it stands, what will you answer?
Thank you so much, first of all, for inviting me to the Insight. And I also appreciate the opportunity to discuss matters this country. According to my understanding about the state of this country, I feel the country is somewhere near death, if there is somewhere an economy can fall into. Because I have just seen the prices of commodities shooting abnormally, and the plans that I see are barely plans to solve the challenges that the country is experiencing. So my understanding is simply the country is at a very bad state. But I know with the new administration, with the new plans they have for us, we are headed somewhere. Hopefully, they will take us somewhere.
Okay. Gentleman, Mr. Getembe, Mr. Austin, is saying that according to him, the true picture of the economy is that the economy is near its deathbed. I don't know, maybe if you have a different picture, maybe you can picture the economy in a different way. I think it is bad to what extent?
Thank you very much, Mr. Eugene, for the invite. Once again, I appreciate. Let me start by saying it's a privilege and honor to share to the other Kenyans to understand. What I wish to state is that people should not be worried, because the economy, as much as people are saying is going to fall, it's going to be bad, but people need to understand also we have come from a period, and the period you have come from is a period of erection, where most things on a standstill. Look about employment, look about the commodities moving among the market. There was that much slow in the market. So we need to give time for the period to take its place. We also need to compare our neighborhood and at large in the global market. You can see prices of fuels are shooting even in the national market. So what does it mean? So we cannot say that the economy is really doing that bad. It's okay, we understand, because of the period. You see, and again, if one country, the economy is not doing good, it also affects the other country. So which we need to understand and say, because we have come from a period, so let's give a country and economy its time to see if we can be able to pick up.
Okay. And gentlemen, you guys are of course aware that we are coming just from the election period, just as you have said. And let me just pick on this. There's a certain issue that actually was so much talked about, that is by the Kenya Kwanza government. The Kenya Kwanza government, during that time, of course, they were on the side of the deputy president, and then that is the deputy president Ruto. And when the economy, the talks about the economy being bad, were the then president saying that the Russia-Ukraine war has affected our economy. But then Kenya Kwanza was saying that no, you have to do something. There is something much more than the economy being affected by the Russia-Ukraine. How has Russia and Ukraine war affecting what we have right now? Do you believe that maybe, because actually the economy has not yet changed, the basic commodities, some of its prices, some of the prices of basic commodities have not yet lowered down as we expected immediately the president was sworn in, as we were made to believe? What do you think? Could the Russia-Ukraine war have affected our economy? And just to what extent, if you could maybe explain.
All right. Thank you so much for that question. I think, number one, we need to understand that the promises being given during campaigns are politics. Because they are politics, people give promises that would please the ears of the listeners, and also they promise things and want to criticize the government in place to make sure that they are viewed as a failure, so that they pick up and look like they have a solution to provide. The real issue is that the Russian-Ukraine war has affected our economy because of the sanctions that have been implemented through those countries, and this has affected the fuel prices, and affecting the fuel price means everything has to be expensive, because whatever the commodity it may be, it needs transportation, and transportation with our country that is not yet reformed to solar energy or other non-fuel energy for transportation, we have to bear the burden of the cost of fuel. This in turn results to high cost of prices and commodities, and indeed it has affected us so much, because I just noticed that the fuel price at the moment is at 179 shillings per liter, which is so high as compared to what it was before the Russia and Ukraine war. So my thought is that the government in place at the moment did not recognize, or were not at a position to really know what was affecting our country, because they were mostly outside. They were not inside the government to feel what is causing the pinch. So the Ukrainian war has indeed affected us quite.
Okay. Mr. Getelme, he says that, and he is of course agreeing that the Russia-Ukrainian war has affected the economy. But now my question that I pose to you is that how does international matters or issues, that things that are happening globally, how do they affect our economy? And like, why will they affect an economy of maybe a country like Kenya?
Eugene, you have to understand the basic about the global. So let me give it an example for people to be able to understand it to be clearly. We have the countries that produce tea in Kenya, and the most people consume it are maybe from the Western culture. So if there's sanctions on the Western culture on not to consume this product or something like that, we can be able to affect it. Like if the prices are brought down on global market, so this means also to affect the country that is producing. Now this is the case. I'm going to put here an example. As we have said, there is the Ukraine war. Yes, we understand it is there. The superpower countries are fighting, and they are fighting for what is called about wealth, resources. They're trying to see which is continuing to become the superpower, and on that way they also bring in sanctions. You understand, in sanctions in trade, they are there. We have tariffs, we have other things. You see, for one country to be superior to another person, even on a normal nature way, you have to control another person. You give him this thing, and then you give him the other thing, so you can be able to control on him. So him or her on that person if he's on an individual. Now for the country, it's about now her. So if the international countries are being faced by this war, so now there is now become that challenge is being pushed from the international market out to the local market. You see, us in Kenya, to be an example, in Kenya, we don't produce oil. We mostly depend on imported oil. So this means as the dollar is going high because of the wars, so this affects the cost of buying. I think I was reading a newspaper today and I see the dollar actually is really doing bad. The Kenya shilling is doing bad in the international market. So what does it mean? So we need to chip in, we need to use more money to buy a dollar. So this affects the whole economy.
So maybe if you make us understand the specifics of a war, the ripple effect. Yes, the ripple effect is that when there is a war, for example, for an instance, the Russia-Ukraine war, then obviously there will be a ripple effect that will affect the economy, of course, the dollar, you're saying, the dollar, even the Kenyan shilling. But how? To what extent? Like, what are the specifics that maybe this war will affect this and this and this? In what way?
Thank you very much, Mr. Eugene. I need people to understand this. When there is war in any country, there are many things which are affected. Number one is trade. There is no that free movement of trade where people can be able to come in and trade freely. We have seen on newspapers, we have seen on television, where you get there are a lot of people dying, there's a lot of hunger, the people starving there. And more so, you see, for you to do that trade during that period, so what does it mean? You need to be known by some few people, you need to get some government intervention to these businesses, and more so, the key thing that is affecting here is about the movement of products in the market.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So once the products are not able to move in the market, so this shifts all the attention of an economy, movement of the dollar, movement of the money through an economy which can be able to bring, as a result, shuts down the economy and also makes the other countries now to use more money to buy that product that is really available.
Well, Austin, China has slapped Kenya actually with a 1.3 billion debt penalty on SGR. Now, still on economy, now where does this take us in matters economy? Where does it place us economy? Yes, economically we are in a bad stage, of course, even from your beginning remark. But now China has again slapped us with another 1.3 billion. What does this mean or portend to economy in general?
Thank you so much once again for that question. I think if you can recall in the past how much the debt ceiling that we strived to get to affected our country, you may imagine how much we have to incur the cost of debt in our country, how much we may have to spend in paying taxes that will in turn be used in recovering the loan plus the penalty. And being slapped with a penalty simply means we were unable to pay the debts in the times that we were given. That means that at a country we are at a state that we direly need a leader who will help us fill the gaps that money has been getting lost through. And also we are at a state that if we don't get proper financial management in the country, we are going to be damaged. I still insist that we are at a bad state as a country, and without a proper governance, we are going to be dead. It's like a patient who is in the ICU and is in need of just the direct medication that will help us. For us, our direct medication that will raise us up is financial management, finances that are properly accounted for in all sectors of the government. Yeah.
Okay, quite interesting. Of course, according to you, believing that, of course, we are at a bad state, and of course, China slapping us with the 1.3 billion, of course, has got a ripple effect in our economy. It stings our economy even more. And of course, you're mentioning about the governance, or the leadership that we need at the helm, is a leadership that will actually see the resuscitation of our economy. And now let me just ask you a question on that point. You looked at the current cabinet structure that we have, or even the other leadership positions that have been filled by the incoming government. Do you see maybe us as Kenyans fighting for over 50 years an accountable and an independent and a transparent government? Do we see such a government coming in place?
Well, I think our cabinet formation partly is very good, and the other part, it's going to mess us further, because there are people with a lot of questions of integrity, and in the recent past we have seen their cases being withdrawn in unclear circumstances. We don't know why they are being withdrawn now. Probably I may understand, or I may assume that it's being withdrawn because there is the review by the parliament that is ahead and the approval. So they want the names to be clear. If these cabinet secretaries who has integrity questions are getting to the government, it simply means we are going to take our country further into the ditch of death. We are going to draw our country closer to the worst of the states, because holding a public office with questionable integrity simply means you are now going to be given powers to handle finances that in the past you have embezzled. I think with the cabinet formation, we just hope, of course.
It'll be quite interesting. And now this begs quite a lot of questions which I want to direct to you, Mr. Samuel, Mr. Gitembe. Of course, the first question that I asked him was about China slapping us with 1.3 billion debt penalty on our SGR. And of course, my question to him was that what are the ripple effect, or where does this take us economically? Maybe if you could give us the specifics, general, because he mentioned that they will take us to the trenches. Now, if you could mention maybe the specifics, and then again another question that came up from this same question was particularly on the issue of leadership and governance, and he mentioned that we need a strong leadership and governance. But one thing that comes out clearly, that the Kenya Kwanza government, even from the onset of things, at face value, it looked kind of a government that had a certain type of people, because even the president himself initially had got some issues, had been accused severally of maybe corruption, if I can just to mention. Now, when you look at this, do you think really that Kenya is on its journey to maybe resuscitate the economy as it stands on matters leadership? If you maybe could tackle the two questions kindly.
Thank you very much once again. Let me make it clear for people to understand. The 1.2 billion that they're saying that Kenya's defaulted, to be honest, as we understand, all of us are doing banking, and sometimes all of us borrow, especially us as business people. We go borrow from the bank. There are some times which we don't pay in some months. So this doesn't mean now we are doing that badly. So we need to understand one thing, that even I see a press release that has been released by the National Treasury, by Okuriatan, saying that the country is still unstable. There is no cause of alarm. So people need to understand one thing, and again, you understand before elections that there is no government that has not been working. There are some parts of the government which are not working. especially like some things like payment of these needs, some proposals from the National Treasury, the committees for Treasury, they're not already in Parliament to do all these things. So we need to give it time, because the government has been formed. Yes, we give it time, and then the government in place can be able to pay. We all of us are working hard Kenyans, and we need to understand one thing, as much as possible. There's something I had you mention, and my colleague has said about it, is about maybe the people who are in the former government, or they have investment funds, and now they come to our next and now been appointed to the government. So the key thing that we need to understand, yes, is financial management. That's the key thing. Number two, we understand the former regime. They were having a lot of cases imposed on people, especially as business people. I can tell you the truth. I've been in business before. We get some of our amounts being withheld in accounts. Like, imagine today I go to deposit 1 million in the bank. They have to ask me many questions. Where have I got money from? Where did business guy do from? And we understand there are many sources of which you can bring money to Kenya. And that's why I'm so happy with the new government that has come in place. They have said you can deposit even if it's more than 1 million in a day, more than 2 million in a day. So what does it mean? Many business people are not going to hide money in their pockets. So this money is coming to the banks, and now the money is coming to the economy, so the government is going to get money, and you cannot be able to repay. I can say, to be honest, we have a lot of people who are giving us money, who are lending to Kenya. We have the the International Monetary Fund, which is giving money to Kenya, the Bank of Africa, and so on. So China cannot be the first country to say we have defaulted. So if they could say so how many have we defaulted? So we need to get that clear number. So this gives a confidence to us. As much as possible, there's a cause of saying that we have defaulted, but they should give time for the new government to settle in. We understand even this cabinet has been set 2 weeks ago. It's not really set in the place. So what does it mean? Let's give it time for the new government, give them time for them to deliver.
Yes. I just like to add on his comment. Of course, we have to give the government some time to settle and do their things. But I also feel that from a business perspective, that if I take a loan from Bank A, Bank B, and Bank C, and then I am unable to pay this loan, and I am slapped with a financial punishment, like now Kenya has been given 1.3 billion. It simply tells me that my business is not doing well, or otherwise it tells me that I took the loan without purpose. That drives me to a point that probably the loan that we are now defaulting was unnecessarily taken from China without proper plans, or if it was taken with proper plans, the management process became poor. Yes.
Quite interesting. And of course that leads me to the next question about our debt. And the question is, the debt that we have, actually we have got a high debt ceiling. Do you believe or think that we have an unsustainable debt? Can you, Mr. Austin? Do you think that we have a kind of unsustainable debt because we are borrowing, and of course you think that the problem or the issue is during the process of maybe using this money. Maybe it was borrowed with an ideal, of course there was some issue that they wanted to sort out, but when they got the money, this money is now used for some other issues that was not meant for it. So what do you think? Do you think that the debt is now unsustainable because you hold to the view that we are in the trenches economically?
Thank you so much. From our president's mouth, he has severally said that our debt is unsustainable and it was taken without plans. I think our debt is really a big itch to us because we have taken debts. I don't know, I have not been into the government positions, but I think as normally you may go to the bank and request that you get a loan. You have to, if you do business, you maybe want to invest the loan into marketing. When you receive the loan, your entire plans change. You are tempted to use it to buy an asset that probably you needed at the moment for your business, or you think of using it for another purpose. I think our loan, our debt has become unsustainable. Terribly unsustainable because it has been taken, and in most cases we have heard from the the courts in the country, people being sued for taking the public funds into their own pockets. That tells us that we have taken debts that we have no purpose for, or the people entrusted with the responsibility of using this money after we receive has used them for things they were not taken for. Yes.
It's kind of interesting because I believe that from the way Getembe you're speaking, you actually have a different view whether whether this debt is really unsustainable. From your earlier remarks, you maybe believe that this is sustainable, but still a question on you is that on this debt, can you say that the policy direction in Kenya today lacks the historical understanding of Kenya's economic terrain, and of course maybe they also do not appreciate where we are currently as a country, and that maybe the expectation of the future, they have kind of unrealistic expectations of the future, and that is what is actually happening. What do you think?
Thank you so much for that question. I think that most of the top leaders that we have had in the country have focused on a very small part of the 2030 vision for this country. If you look at the vision 2030 for the country, you find there is infrastructure development, there is human resource development, ICT, and there are a lot of things. But presidents want us to see what they have done. They are more of what will people see physically. That is why you can see when President Kibaki was going, the main thing I remember was mentioned about him was the Thika Superhighway. That is a major achievement that he made. President Uhuru Kenyatta, as he was also going out, I had a lot of comments about his success on SGR and the what do we call it? The expressway. They have forgotten the other aspects of the Vision 2030. And Vision 2030 had a lot of things for the country. If only we could get a policy director that would give us proper leadership towards achieving our Vision 2030 in entirety, we would get somewhere as a country. Yes.
Oh, kind of great conversation. We're going for a short break, but of course I'll come to you right after Mr. Getembe, and of course you'll maybe help us to elucidate actually what he has said about, number one, the debt ceiling. What do you think about it? Is it sustainable, or is it the lifestyle of Kenyans? That is number one. And the second thing, of course, is about the policy direction. Are we taking the direct are you taking the good direction with the policies that we are making, or as he's saying that the president or the people that we are having in leadership just want us to see maybe things that can be seen? We want roads, but there are other issues that of course that will have helped in resuscitating the economy that actually they do not want to care about, because they will not actually be kind of significant or be seen to them that Kibaki did this, Ruto did this, or Uhuru did that. Of course, we are coming right to that. After this short break, we are having this conversation here on the Inside. 2144 is our SMS line at GBS TV Africa at Eugene Ochienkwat. Keep tuned and of course keep listening to us. Well, this short break.
GBS.
Welcome back, and thank you for staying with this live broadcast. Of course, this is the Insight. We bring to you issues, and as we delve on the economy post-election, I still have my two guests, these two gentlemen, elucidating, telling us issues, matters, economy. Let me just go back to Mr. Gitembe. Thank you so much, Mr. Gitembe. Well, I was asking you that is this debt, is it the debt that is not sustainable, or is it the lifestyle? And of course, I'm asking these also based on what Mr. Austin was saying about the direction of the policy that actually Kenya is taking. The people that are driving our policies, economic policies, do they appreciate maybe the historical terrain, the historical economic terrain of Kenya, and do they understand that, and do they appreciate where we are currently? Maybe about the unrealistic expectations about the future. Maybe if you can talk about that generally.
Thank you very much once again. To be honest, the economy is not doing good. That is what we have started to say. Number two, the debt is becoming unsustainable. We understand the government has been borrowing money for the last couple of years. And once that money has been borrowed, goes to the treasury, the way how it is being administered is different. It's challenging. I'm so glad about my colleague has talked about the priorities. So we need to give a priority. It's the same way when you receive your salary. What are you giving it for priority? To be honest, our government is not considering it. The Vision 2030, as he was saying it, yes, it is good, sustainable for us. But how is the policy that is drive to it? We understand that there was about food, there was about housing, and there is infrastructure. But look about what is happening currently. So the government is pushing on infrastructure, it has left food, it has left housing. And the two, food and housing, is the basic commodities of the people. You see, we cannot say about the lifestyle of the people has changed that is making the debt to be unsustainable. You see, the life changes according to the needs. And it's so much worrying when our president, that who promised that this government is going to be for the youths, the border people, and the common people. I was trying to look about the cabinet that has been formed. And the other one that is already coming out, I don't see any common manager there. I don't see border guy. So the people which they are facing through, the challenges, the deputy president doesn't understand them, to be honest. Yes, he has been told a story because he has been gone to the people that this is what we're facing through. But the fact is that we need the young people who are facing these people, the challenges. You see, like the current trade which you are facing through, there is no day which the deputy president will understand the fuel is going up. His fuel is paid by the government. Us as the economy people, us as business people, and the common person, we are the ones who understand the pain when you go to the pump. So the reality is that yes, it is unsustainable for now unless the government comes in to intervene. And you see, for it to intervene, we have to change the priorities. The government needs to change their direction. To be honest, if there are some projects which are infrastructure which are costing a lot of money and they don't need to be used for now, they can be suspended. Let's first tackle the issue of housing. If every common person will be able to access housing, then the cost of living goes down, the lifestyle goes down. Number two is about food. If food is enough, and I wish you could get them to talk about, there is an issue that is talking about the GMO and so on. I wish you could get them and talk it later on. So if people can be able to have enough food to put on the table, number two, they get place to sleep, that is housing. Then now infrastructure, because it's also another key factor for all of them, can be considered. So the policies that have been put in place, they are not very much beneficial on how ways of curbing the economy to be sustainable. So they need to be done, there's a lot of review need to be done, especially the new government which has come in. They need to work a lot of reviews to check on the other years which has passed. Those policies which have been implemented by the parliament or the other bodies which govern the treasury and so on. If they're not very much essential and helping for them to deliver for the government policies, then they can be reviewed, put aside, and the new policies which are affecting the common person to be put in place so it can be able to make the country at least its debt to be sustainable for some time.
So you believe that currently as it stands, the economy of Kenya, that the debt is not sustainable?
Yes,
Great.
that's true.
Now, well, this leads us quite to another, two more questions actually that I'd love us to delve in. But the first one that actually you alluded to was about the corruption that of course is within our system. And of course you say that this money is borrowed with a certain intention, ideal, but when they get it, now the process of actually the management, now that is where we have an issue. But my question tonight will be, when we look generally at our economy and the developmental agendas, even the projects that is being put together, where does the graft animal begin to feed on our resources after getting it from the donors or whoever, the loan? Now, at what point does the graft animal now begin to feed on our resources?
Thank you so much for that question. When the government request for loans, they do a proposal for what they want to do with the debt and everything, and then the monetary organizations find it worth to give. You can't get a loan without properly stating and clarifying what you want to do with the loan. When it comes to the country, it gets to the treasury, and then now the respective parts or bodies of the country present what they want to do. If somebody who is in charge of roads and transport, you say, I want to construct the road from Nairobi to Kikuyu. And then once you are given that fund, now in Kenya we have had a lot of issues of ghost contractors, ghost workers. You find that the people in charge or the people with the money assign some being that does not exist or some company that is not operational to be working on a road. Later, when you try to look for Nairobi Kikuyu road, you find it's not existing. And when you go further to look at the contractor, you find it's some being that does not exist or some company that does not exist. I think that is where the graft animals start feeding. They start feeding at the point of implementation, at the point when they already have the finances to implement why the money was borrowed. Yes.
Okay, if this money is given maybe by the IMF,
yes,
is there a way in which the IMF can ensure, because actually according to your statement, you say that the IMF will only give a loan to a country if you have ideal reasons why you need the money. Now my question is, if indeed you have ideal reasons why you need the money, then can also the IMF be allowed maybe to patron the way this money is used? And another question is, can the IMF say, no, we have given you money for quite a long time, but you are misusing this money for corruption cases and issues? Now, what can IMF do? Can maybe they say that we're no longer giving Kenyans any money?
I think that about IMF being given the permission to patron how money is used is really asking for too much from IMF, because you can imagine if a bank in Kenya is giving loans to millions of Kenyans, and then these millions of Kenyans, the government the bank is still asked to go and follow how Eugene is spending his money, how Samuel is spending his money, or how Austin is spending his money. I feel it's going to be asking for much. About the IMF refusing to give loans when they feel the borrower or the country that has borrowed for several times has not used the money rightfully, I think it can happen, but after some time, because it takes time for you to know. They always give reasons. Prices changed, so we had to subsidize on this with the amount that we had and everything. I know and think that IMF can at some point feel that this money is not necessary for this nation. Just like China, after giving us the slap of the penalty, after some time they will feel like we are not using that fund.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Gatembe, in a certain newspaper, I was immediately after the president was sworn in, I was looking at a certain cartoonist, and of course there was a picture of reality. And then there's also a picture of Kenya Kwanza's manifesto, and then there's also the president, and the IMF was holding him to reality, and of course there's also Kenya Kwanza's manifesto, and it kind of got me thinking that maybe the manifesto was saying something different from what the reality is, and the IMF maybe had the power to drive the country that way. So my question is, what do these international lenders, how do they impact in our economy in terms of conditions? Do they give us conditions before they lend us? And what are always those conditions? And how do they impact in our economy, or even in the manifestos of governments generally? Like maybe if a government said that unga from 220 will be now 70 shillings, and maybe the international lender wants them to maybe to do something in a different way, what happens?
Thank you very much for that good question. I want us to check this in this scenario way. Number one, the government is in business with the renters. So renters have money, but they cannot rent to themselves. So they have to rent to individuals, to countries, and other corporates. In this case, IMF already they have given money to Kenya. Is something which my colleague was saying, and I wish to add something. Of course, it's very much difficult once because once you give a proposal to the bank, and the bank has approved your credit, has gone to your account, it's very difficult for the company, the bank, to control on how you are spending. Okay. Because they expect you are a sober mind, you are able to use the money according how you have stated. For them is how to get the interest back. Okay. That's what they are concerned. So the key thing here that we need to understand is that you see, us when we go to borrow as a country, we do it through a proposal through the National Treasury, through the government. So the government says we have a project of 10 billion, we have 2 billion. So the 8 billion that is remaining, we are requesting to be financed. The same way here today, when an individual goes to borrow from the bank, he will state and say, I have this amount, and my project is this amount. And so I'm requesting the bank to loan me this amount. So at the end of the day, the reality where it comes in is that I know the renters might not be coming too much, especially to the how much like to the manifestos of which are being stated. There's another thing that I need us to understand. So once the manifesto is done, it's something like you want to achieve, what do you want to do? Then this one, when you go back to the reality on the ground. I was told and I was promised, I was part of the people who were promised that unga, after the Bible is put down and is being sown in, is going to come down. But when you see the question comes in, how does the unga come down? Which money is it using? Okay. Is it the rented money? Is it the tax paying money? Is it the money that we move on every day to pay through the KRA, through and so on? So these are the general overviews that we need to understand and to get to the reality. For us to get a subsidized unga for a longer term, we have to produce, to be honest. Okay. There's no person who can promise you and you tomorrow that is able to give you new clothes every day, unless he has a factory of making clothes. Okay. So for us to cap this subsidy, because subsidy, I was checking the newspaper, they're saying, and I heard it from the head of the deputy president say that they are able to spend around 7 billion in 1 week only on subsidy of unga, which is very true and is very costly. So if they're able to subsidize the cost of production, so the cost of production goes low, there's a lot of production. So now once more production is made, then now the government is able now to sustain the prices of unga at least to a favorable one, because there's a lot of production, there's the commodities available. So this makes even the sustainability of even of what people are owing us, because I wish how the government could borrow. If the government could borrow the amount and use that amount to subsidy and use it for production, then we're able to curb what you were saying about where now the appetite for the money comes in. Because once everybody sees money, then the appetite goes up. Okay. Thank you.
Kind of interesting. Let me ask you something, Gatembe. Well, some people do not understand when you say that when maybe subsidizing a product may be more expensive in terms of ripple effect than maybe not doing it. And when the President Ruto, of course, removed the subsidy on petrol and on some other products, there's kind of a debate of whether it was right or wrong. And some, in the other end of the debate, some people are saying that subsidy only help or enriches some few people than maybe if you do the other way. And people still don't understand how is subsidy enriching a few people, or why is subsidy bad? Yet it has always been used, and of course it makes unga or even some basic commodities even cheaper. Maybe if you could explain the specifics of how a subsidy, maybe the ripple effect generally, that will make it costly in the end.
Thank you very much. Subsidy is coming in to make the product mostly favorable. Number one, I want to make it, I like using a common example which every person can be able to understand. Subsidy is where the government comes in to chip in to make something really affordable for the people.
Okay.
Assume the product of a glass today is costing 10 shillings. Now the government can say, because most people are not able to afford the glass at 10 shillings, so the government is adding 2 shillings of every third price, so the price goes to 8 shillings. So this means a common person is able to afford it at 8 shillings.
Okay.
So how subsidy works is this way, because if you do on a simple mathematics, before the cost of unga was around 110 shillings. Currently, because of the cost of living, where the price of fuel has gone high, the price of production has gone very high, the price of fertilizer has gone very high, the price of buying seeds has gone high. You see, all those prices, they add up to one thing, the final product.
Okay.
There is a journey that is informed here. From production, where the farmers are doing the production here. There's the cost of production, the cost of seeds, the fertilizer, that time of making the product ready to the stores, making the flour, then going to the market, the cost has already gone very high. So when when the cost has gone very high, now the subsidy here, now this is the money that the government is putting. And you remember, this money can either be borrowed, can either be the daily revenue corrections and so on, or getting from other revenues where the government is getting the money. Now instead of that money is being used in production, it is used to subsidize. Subsidy is for a shorter time.
Okay.
Is to make something available for a shorter time.
Okay.
Not because you are talking to me about sustainability. To be sustainable means on a long term. 2 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years.
Okay.
Sustainability. But on a shorter sustainability, that's where subsidy comes in.
So this money that was used for subsidy, if it was used for production for those 15 years, then it should have helped greatly. Then that is what you mean.
Absolutely.
Okay. You have something to add, maybe?
Yes. On subsidy, when the government decides to subsidize production, for example, what the president has been saying, that subsidizing the product is very costly to the government as compared to subsidizing the production. Because if you subsidize the cost of fertilizer, the cost of the seeds, it means at the moment the price may be high, but 6 months at the time of harvest it will be cheaper, because a lot of people would have produced the same product. That is simply what I wanted to add.
Okay. Kind of interesting, but of course I'm still in your case. You talked about corruption, of course still an issue that is within our system. That is actually something that has caused a public outroar, whereby our resources, the resources that we have, are not actually and effectively being used for the Big Four agenda or the Vision 2030, or just generally to benefit the common mwananchi. Now the question is, what can we do? Because of course we have leaders, and some of these leaders have been tagged to be corrupt. And of course you spoke about certain cases that are being withdrawn from the courts. What do you think that actually we can do to ensure that the fight towards a transparent, free, fair economy, whereby we will not be having people mismanaging our resources? What can we do generally as entrepreneurs, as economists, or even as common ones? or even the government itself?
Okay. I think we have very little to do in terms of preventing or terminating corruption, but we also have a role, because corruption, you find even in business, corruption starts from I want to get this tender, so I give you this amount, you give me the tender. We can do that by making sure we are given what we need on the grounds of merit. And the second thing that the government can do is to, first of all, giving the judiciary, that is the body entrusted with finding out cases and making judgments, its full independence, so that they are able to decide on their own without influence. And the other thing that can also be done is fastening the process of investigation and judgments, so that when somebody is corrupt, the judgment is received in good time, and if he is to be arrested, like the two who were arrested, who are given 57 and I think 60 years of jail terms, it's done in good time so that the others can fear. You see, in Kenya, you steal 5 billion and then your case goes, you are 67 years old, your case goes for 11 years, you are there where you near death. So you die without being given your judgment. So independence of the judiciary, the first step, and then now the fastening of the process of judgment. Yes.
But I think that is some of the issues that we have the president trying to work on. And yet the same president, there's those people who are allied to him, who graciously campaigned for him, they're off the hook. Now, how is this going to happen? Yes, he has said that he will be fighting corruption. He will fight corruption, and there is no chance for corruption in his government. We are seeing some people being jailed, and most people, of course, we know that those people who are being jailed never actually were on the other side, in the other side of the political journey. And then we have these people who have been tagged as corrupt, those people who have been tagged as criminals. Yet we are seeing them being hooked off from actually the justice system is actually vindicating them. What do you think about that?
I think it's upon the president now to implement what he promised.
But we still have a journey.
We still have a
long journey, indeed.
Yes, a long journey.
Well, Mr. Getembe, there's a question I have for you. Both of you have said and have stood your ground that we have got an unsustainable debt. The debt that we have is kind of unsustainable. Well, Japan has got a debt, GDP of 200%. The US has got a GDP debt of 100%. Why is Kenya problem at 70% debt GDP? What do you think?
Thank you very much once again. Yeah, it's honest, as you have said, that the countries, their GDPs are 200, like USA you have said, and so on. As we are still at 70, but we're still doing bad. You see, at the end of the day, the line still falls, or the hammer still falls on the use of the amounts that we have. The amount that the government collects, the amount that we have in Kenya, how do we spend? The same thing, I want to go back on the priorities. What is our priority as a country? What are we prioritizing? If we prioritize on the money, we prioritize our money, or it is not on value addition, what do you expect? The GDP need to fall down. And you understand, for you to be able to sustain the GDP to grow, you have to sustain, number one, production. Sustain production is the key thing. Look about the other countries that are doing well. Look about the USA. Look about the other countries like China. You get manufacturing is the key thing. Production is very high. In Kenya, we don't do a lot of production. We have a lot of resources, but we're not doing production. We have a lot of manufacturing, but we are not using the manufacturing. So for the GDP to be able to grow, for us to be that very high and to make it sustainable, we have to invest much in production. And I'm really advising to the new government that is in place, And I'm so happy because I know they can be able to get this information. It is very clearly that we need to put our priorities first. And to be honest and to understand that we are doing better than a country, and for us to grow the GDP, we need to start straight from production. Then we proceed to manufacturing. Then if we can be able to tackle the production and manufacturing, trust me, our GDP is going to grow very high, and we can be able to make our economy to become sustainable. Because once the economy is sustainable and the GDP is very high, so this makes the rate of employment comes in, the rate of food being available, and so on, even the commodities becoming favorable, and then at the end of the day, sustainability comes in.
Well, I don't know if you have the specifics, just a minute kindly. I don't know if you have the specifics of why 200 GDP for Japan, 100% GDP for US, and Kenya is debt at 70% GDP a problem. Maybe the specifics, because when you say that we just need to maybe have a clear we need to know what we have to prioritize. Maybe someone will ask, maybe if you could differentiate or maybe compare, try to contrast or just oppose the incident of Japan or US and that of Kenya. What is different? What difference are there that would actually say that Kenya is better, that Japan at 200 is still better than Kenya at 70%? Maybe the specifics.
I think Japan's GDP is contributed to by 200% of the debt, because they take debts, they borrow for the right purpose, and their corruption, if you look at their corruption rates, it's very low as compared to Kenya. So they borrow for the right purpose. Coming down to the US and to Kenya, the issue is entirely corruption. Yes. So maybe the specific is only the use of that debt.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Corruption.
Yeah.
A case that, of course, is on Kenyans, and we are wondering whether Kenya's journey to accountable government will ever come to happen. Of course, 50 years, the journey is still on. While we are still on the inside discussing issues that affect you one-on-one, while with these two great gentlemen, we're going for another short break, but of course it will be a very quick one. Then we'll be right back. Of course, there's another part of it, of course, the last segment of it, where we greatly still discuss the economy post-elections. And these two gentlemen, through their eyes, we get to understand exactly what is happening. Gentlemen, let me start with you, Austin. Well, still on the discipline of the government in spending. Now, how, just a bit of it, so that maybe Kenyans may understand, or even if the government was watching this, how they can understand, how can they instill discipline within its own self, so that at least we do not get to see what is happening, the corruption that is a case, because we have mentioned corruption in this panel for the longest time as the main issue that is actually affecting us. So for us to have discipline, for the government to have discipline, to ensure that if they borrow a certain amount of money, that they have to use it, what must be put in place for us to have that kind of government?
Thank you so much. I have two things that I can suggest to be put in place to curb the issue of corruption. Number one is, as I mentioned earlier, is about giving judiciary and the law enforcing firms their power and independence to do their work. And number two, the government also knows the people that they are engaging in segments like the cabinet secretaries or the permanent secretaries. The government also has a role in ensuring that they choose people with good integrity that will be able to manage the national funds and with prior experience and prior evidence of proper management of funds and implementation of projects.
Okay. Yeah. Mr. Gitembe, still on the economy issues and talking about matters discipline, what is your take generally, even as we wrap up this issue?
The issue about discipline, about governance and management, it has been a lot of challenge. It has faced a lot of issues before. And my really hope to the new government that is already in place, that has taken place, is that we have a country to defend, we have a role to play, and for those people who have been appointed, especially to the government sector, even on the private sector, we really have a lot of work to do. Let us maintain honesty, let us be able to secure funds. You see, these funds, when they are available, they are helping our country and all of us and the generation to come. So this is my prayer, and I'm really wishing that the discipline becomes a key from the private sector and the public sector to curb corruption.
I was wondering whether any government official outside there will hear your prayer and say, what Gitembe is saying is actually very right. I need to stop practicing corruption. But anyway, we hope that they hear. Now, the president has said that he wants 300 billion to be cut from the budget. And of course, we believe that this will have a ripple effect generally, because but the question is, what kind of ripple effect? How effective will it help in resuscitating the economy? Because this is one of the measures that he has put in place to ensure that the economy is resuscitated. Let me start with you, Junior. What do you think? How is this 300 billion budget cut going to help generally in resuscitating the economy of Kenya?
Okay. Thank you so much for that question. The first thing that I'd ask myself is, after the budget cut of 300 billion, where is it redirected to? Without proper redirection of that 300 billion, we are still messing up. If the budget is cut by 300 billion, probably, I know he was thinking of reducing our debt and borrowing, because when the budget is so high, we have to borrow a lot to sustain it. I think he intends to reduce our debt rates and also to reduce the appetite for borrowing, because you see, there is a popular say that when the banks want to give you a loan, they come smiling. But when now it's time to repay, another person who did not smile for you to take it comes to ask for it. He is running away from the slap that we have seen from China, and he is trying to at all cost reduce the issue of borrowing so that we can live within our means. I think that is his intention. But if that is cut but it's not redirected properly, we are still messing.
Okay. Getembe, the 300 billion cut ripple effect generally in sustaining Kenya's economy, what do you foresee?
We need first to understand the 300 billion being cut, on which extent is it being cut from, and what is this necessary is being cut. Mostly is what he was saying is the recurrent expenditure, the daily expenditure, through the salaries, through amount given to allowances to the civil servants and so on. The same case and the same thing as my colleague has said, even if they cut 100 billion, 10 billion and so on, if still the amount that is being reduced is not put in good place, we have nothing. Actually, there's nothing going to help. So the key thing is this. They are telling us they have reduced the 300 billion. We need to see this 300 billion, what has it done? They need to tell us from this year, the amount that which has been cut from this, which we have saved, actually is like saving the budget.
Yes.
So we have saved this amount. Now the same amount which has been saved, it has done, builded 99 dams, which has done water, which has given us irrigation. So that is what we want to see. Don't tell us theory that we have reduced the 300 billion, so we are good and safe. Tell us we have reduced the 300 billion, and the same 300 billion has done a manufacturing, has done a production of fertilizer, has done something in a lubricant to make the economy to be sustainable. Yes.
No, well, thank you so much for that. I want us to delve into another issue, but still on the economy. William Ruto, of course, he went to Nairobi Security Exchange, JDC, and made a play that is going to ensure that hustlers, mama mbogas and borders are listed in the NAC. How is this possible, considering the regulatory mechanism in place that define certain thresholds that must be met? First of all, what are these thresholds that must be met? Can they even be met by mama mboga, mtu ya boda? And if so, can mtu ya boda mama mboga still manage to maybe raise family and have enough to buy even shares? Maybe to you, Junior.
Thank you so much. Quite an interesting promise, and I think a lot of such interesting ones we have had in the future. I think it's practically impossible for a mama mboga to get to a state of joining the Nairobi Security Exchange. I would first of all start by giving the conditions or the requirements that you have asked. Number one, the company once they join the NSE market, they are called issuers. So for you to be there, you must have been operational for at least 2 years, one of which must show good profit, and that profit must prove that you have a good growth potential. Apart from that, you must be having good working capital. You underline good working capital.
Yes.
Because if you look at averagely border riders, I was looking at a report by the Car and General. They say that averagely in Kenya, border rider makes 1,000 shillings per day from 15 rides onwards. You can imagine 15 rides border getting in one day in Kenya. That tells you how many people gets to their 1,000 per day. It's very difficult, and it's going to be strenuous to achieve that in 2 years. I mean in 1 year, you say 12 months, right? It's going to be strenuous to achieve that unless the borders and mama mbogas are grouped into a number and they register a company so that they operate for the required 2 years and sustain a profit and a good working capital for 1 year. That is when they can be listed. I don't know of his plan because he did not highlight deeper, but without grouping them into companies or groups, it's practically impossible and won't work.
Okay. Let me yes, Getembe.
I want to dive a little bit with my colleague and my good friend here about on this analysis. The key thing here we need to understand is when you talk about Mama Mboga and the boda, which doesn't literally mean the one who rides a boda. We mean, like we talk about the little hustlers. Everybody is an hustler. We are thriving. And we need to understand at the stock exchange market, what is the minimum? For you to go to the minimum to buy the shares in the Nairobi Stock Exchange market, you need only 100 shares. And the 100 shares, it depends on the cost of the number of values. Assume Common A is selling at 2 shillings per share. So that's like around 2,000, which most of the people can afford. I think what the president was trying to say, that even boda and the Mama Mboga is now able to go to the Nairobi Stock Exchange and to start to trade. Because there are some qualities that you need, like eligibility for you to start trading there. Number one, you being a Kenyan citizen, because there is no age limit. Even a younger and the old can be able to trade in the stock exchange market. So to make it in a general way and to make it for many people to understand, because he's also trying to give a hope. The Nairobi Stock Exchange market before was gained for the rich people. Now when he's saying about the Mama Mboga, he's saying about the boda people. So this means even the people in the matatu industry, we cannot still call them the boda people. The people in the wholesale and retail trade, they are Mama Mboga people. So this means, he was trying to mean this way, because those, even the stock exchange market, they are acting through some limits and also some regulations. The regulations can be reviewed as such that in a way, even the people who have like 2,000 shillings, 1,000 shillings, can be able to buy shares and they go to the stock exchange market and buy and trade.
Okay. Yes, Steve.
I think he is right when he mentions that unless there is a review of the regulations, because the current regulations won't allow bodas to join the NSC.
And I was also wondering, because initially when he said that he was hoping that in the cabinet secretaries we will have some boda and Mama Mboga. And of course he never saw any. And so he thought that maybe there was political comradeship from that government, which said that their government will be for Mama Mboga and that for boda. And there were memes everywhere about Wetangula. And of course Mudavadi being given positions as Wetangula being Mutia boda and Musala being Mama Mboga. But anyway, that is that. I'm just wondering, because actually you have actually contradicted yourself a bit when you said the first time, like we had the first Mama Mboga not being in cabinet, not being in government, in the cabinet. But right now we also talking about the Nairobi Stock Exchange. You say just anyone, the hoi polloi, the common man.
I think I didn't say I think if you got my remarks clearly, this is what I was meaning. Okay. You see, even if you say all the boda, it cannot be 100% transition of people joining. We can have people in boda who are teachers, who are clerks, who can still afford to invest. So the key thing, as we were trying to say, the boda people, there are some people who are rich in boda. There is a teacher who is a teacher and still is a boda guy. So it cannot be a transition of 100%. I agree with my friend, very true. Not all boda can afford to feed their family at the same day to deposit in CDC, Central Deposit System accounts.
Okay, yes. So what are these measures the government has to do still at the Nairobi Security Exchange to ensure that there are no much limits, that even a person, the common man, can easily trade? What are these measures that maybe, or barriers that are still there, limitations that are still there, that they have to do away with the regulation that you're talking about? And how fast can that be done to ensure that the common man can actually trade?
I really see no need of having the common man joining, having to strive for everyone to join NSC, while there are other saving avenues a lot that they have abandoned. The most important thing is to ensure that a saving culture is instilled and investment culture. I was happy to hear in the same NSC market, the president mentioned that he wants to privatize some of the public offices, public organizations, and he also formed a committee that will be dealing on promoting investments in the country. So with that achieved, makes sense.
Okay.
With review of regulations, he may review to bring them in, but they will still fail to get, because there is no saving and investment culture in the common mwananchi.
Okay. I want us to delve into another question, which is kind of political, but of course it's the last question, so maybe we can talk about it. Now, this is a question about the deputy president. Now, the deputy president has made pronouncements on certain occasions. First, on the unavailability of excess dollars at the Central Bank of Kenya, which he believe led to the shortage of fuel. This was denied by CBK, where the letter indicated that they don't deal with such, but only a government-related business. Secondly, the DP said that they only found 93 billion in the treasury, something that of course stood out, that the former regime could have embezzled public coffers. That is according to what he was saying. Again, the CS at the time differed with him and explained how government accounts are operated. And lastly, and recently, the DP made a statement on CBC that CBC is a good thing that will only be reformed but can't be expunged. The latter is in conflict with what they indicated in the manifesto. So the question is this: do you think that the DP is properly briefed on matters economy and governance? Because actually, from how he speaks or from his statement, he appears to be conflicting with the real situation. Generally, what do you even make of this as a person of his? Is it kind of, some people actually argue that this could be actually I've got some it might be that the DP is not being properly informed, or it could be it's a strategy. I don't know whether it's a political strategy or the guy is just not being informed. Let me start with you, Junior. Let me hear from you. What do you think?
Thank you so much. Our deputy president is really interesting, and I think at some point I enjoy his jokes. I understand him so much because he's just from being an MP. You see, an MP, you are only governing one constituency. And now to a position of being in charge of the entire country. I think he is in the process of believing that he is a deputy president, and the pronouncements that he still makes, I don't know if it's from the boardroom discussions or from where, but what we just hope for is implementation. I remember how much they fought against CBC in campaigns. I remember how much they were against the treasury and everything. And so the statements that he has been making simply tells us that he is not informed of governance, what should come from a leader's mouth and what should be consulted before giving to the public. I think he's in the process of adjusting. Maybe he may come out as a good deputy.
Okay. Samuel Getembe, properly uninformed or strategy?
The man so-called Rigiji, we love you so much. I'm so happy about him, and he's making some good developments. He's standing out to say the truth. I don't know why he's profiling himself that to say the truth and other people.
He's truthful.
Maybe he says he's a truthful man.
Which we understand.
He's a man of God like me, which we understand and we concur with him. So the basically is that every office and every institution, they have their own advisors. I mean, I know the office of the deputy president, they have an advisory who advises the deputy president before he goes out to speak. It can also be noted during the eras of Moi and so on, where the president can stand and do something without even getting consultation. So it can either be he might be lacking somebody who is advising him, because you see also, there's also the matters of governance. It is not about the interest of the government. So you see, when the sitting CS goes outside and then contradicts of what the deputy president has said, the other time we saw the central bank governor also defying of what the deputy president has said. You see, when the DP is saying it tries to give there's a fear to the country, things are bad. We don't have this. Now, for them to regain that back and trust to the people of Kenya, so now you see the CS going on board and saying, there's nothing to worry, there's no cause of harm, things are going to be okay. But I'm really looking forward in the next like 2 to 3 years, where the deputy president, whatever you'll be saying, it will be something that is concurrent of what is happening. Yes, it can be the truth, but maybe behind the scenes.
Gentlemen, my director tells me that we are short of time. Austin, kindly make your closing remarks in 30 seconds.
Thank you so much once again for allowing me to be here tonight. Thank you, viewer, for listening to our discussion. We hope you find help, and we hope you find the reason to be patient as we try to leave our country or to have our country at the best in the near future with the new leadership. I thank you so much and have a good night tonight.
Mr. Gitembe, do us in 20, kindly.
Thank you very much for hosting us today. We're so much glad to be part and parcel of this interview. I wish to talk to Kenyans and all of us at large. We need to understand it is a tight situation. We tighten our belts, we tighten our means of living, and at the end of the day, we need to have hope. Let us work very hard, let us support our leaders, let's fight corruption when it is to be fought, and at the end of the day, we shall have a good Kenya and a great country to enjoy. Have a good night.
Of course, in his inaugural speech, DP Rigathi Gachagua said, and of course he hearkened to Kenyans, that let us work hard. Let us continue working hard. Well, my good friend and also a panelist was urging you to also work hard and of course fasten your seat belts. I don't know what kind of seat belts, but anyway, I believe it matters economy, because we've been discussing economy post-election. It has been a great conversation here on the Insight, where we get to delve into issues, hot topics, of course, that affect you one-on-one, and of course through the eyes of different stakeholders. Tonight we had a great gentleman here, Austin Jr., joining us, also a financial expert and an entrepreneur. Also Mr. Gitembe Samuel. So happens that they are alumni of KCA University. What a great institution. Anyway, it has been nice having you, and on behalf of everyone who has made this a success, we wish you a great evening, a good night, and of course a good Friday. Till next Friday, at GBS TV Africa, at Eugene Ochieng Kwach. That is my name.